Welcome back to more UCL Fantasy content. This will be my team selection for Matchday 10. We get 2 free transfers for the next round, and for the round of 16, Matchday 11, we get unlimited transfers. So all our focus should be on the upcoming deadline, and all your questions will be answered in tomorrow's stream. Be sure not to miss it by smashing the like button of this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream. Our aim is to get this to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. We're very close towards reaching that milestone. Check all the links in the description below for my X, Instagram, Blue Sky, the Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, which you can also see on screen. The code is cCaFxb, and there are many more links where that came from, like my Patreon and the championships. But let's get straight into this video, discussing my team selection, a brief review of Matchday 9, of course, and how we can improve for the final round of the knockout playoffs. Matchday 9 turned out to be very disappointing for me because I sold certain players towards the end of the deadline stream who did very well, and the replacements just were nowhere near the same level in terms of UCL Fantasy output. I went for Manuel Neuer in goal because I made a few late changes, which included selling Donnarumma, which turned out to be a big mistake for Matchday 9 specifically. One of Kim Min-jae or Upamecano were reportedly going to be benched heading into that deadline stream, and it turned out to be Kim Min-jae, who was originally in my UCL Fantasy squad, and I still wanted to cover Bayern Munich defensively, so I sold Kim Min-jae and decided to cover them with Manuel Neuer between the sticks. But Celtic scored towards the end of the game. Bayern Munich still got the victory, but no clean sheet in the process. I did actually predict 2-1, but ultimately not going for Donnarumma was quite costly in the end, and even covering PSG defensively in a different sort of way, that wasn't the best because there were some 8-pointers in there from the likes of Marquinhos and Nuno Mendes, but I went for William Batshaw, who's got 71 balls recovered this season. Yeah, he didn't make a single ball recovery in Matchday 9, but still got a clean sheet. It's a return, and Hakimi got the assist to deliver 9 points overall, but my other 2 defenders were very disappointing. Hien and Jimitsi conceded twice to Club Brugge, and Hien in particular had an absolute disaster. He made the error which led to Bruges' first goal, and he considered the penalty and also got booked for the second, and before that late incident, he was on course for 5 points even without the clean sheet because of ball recoveries, but he let himself down with that late penalty conceded, and Club Brugge scored their second goal and go to Italy now with a 2-1 advantage in that leg. And my 5th defender was quite disappointing as well, as I'll show you very soon, and he was a Wednesday option, but I didn't decide to bring him on, and I decided to put all my eggs in the Atalanta defensive basket, and it didn't pay off whatsoever. As for my midfield, also very disappointing. Musiala and Pulisic both blanking. Only Dembele, as my captain, was able to get anything on the Tuesday. He's got 7 goals against Brest this season across 3 matches, and in this calendar year, he has 15 goals in 10 appearances, which is simply incredible. And over the weekend, he was a substitute. He came on towards the end of the game, and I have to say with PSG, they're showing terrific form, unbeaten since late November when they lost 1-0 to Bayern Munich in the Champions League. But on a more positive note, my entire front 3 delivered, with Guirassy and Vinicius Jr. both getting 11 pointers, and Harry Kane was going to be my backup captaincy option if Dembele didn't work out, but thankfully that wasn't needed. He only scored 1 goal, but still got that 6-pointer. I just want to see a little bit more from Harry Kane in the Champions League, with a goal and an assist in the same game, or perhaps scoring a brace or a hat-trick, like he did back in Matchday 1 when I captained him in my best matchday of the season so far. And it's worth discussing those players on my bench because they could be crucial heading into Matchday 10. So Phil Foden was the highest scorer there. I subbed him out after the Tuesday matches. He won a penalty against Real Madrid, but I did sell Bellingham to Foden, and that resulted in a 4-point swing at the end with Bellingham's late winner. But that wasn't the worst of them. I went for Di Gregorio instead of Gatti to cover Juventus defensively, and that was also a result of a few factors such as the Kim Min-jae or Upamecano benching, which resulted me in covering Bayern Munich defensively in a different direction, and also with the Carnesecchi versus Rui Patricio saga, who was going to start, and I had a feeling that Rui Patricio would start the first game and then Carnesecchi the second, but once I saw Carnesecchi in that squad, I didn't know exactly what to think of it because he had a fever for the entire week, but I avoided Atalanta defensively in that sort of way, but the likes of Hien and Jimitsi let me down, and it was Sappacosta who ended up starting and getting an assist. He got a full rest this weekend and a 0-0 draw against Cagliari, so ultimately I haven't covered certain areas in the best possible way. Even Schlotterbeck was in my team a couple of days ago when I covered the best team for Matchday 9, and he got 8 points in a 3-0 win against Sporting away. So that's another player that kind of got away from me, but no complaints about the forward line. For me, it's the best front 3 you can really build. at the moment, despite the plethora of options like Haaland, Mbappe, Gyökeres, Pavlidis, etc. And the midfield, I have to say, let me down big time. Going for Musiala over Elise didn't really sting too much, I'd say, but I would expect Musiala to have a say in the second leg against Celtic, but both Elise and Musiala don't have the best goals and assists record in the last 10 matches. Both of them, in fact, have 2 goals. Elise has 2 assists and Musiala just the 1, but I think both of them could get a lot of returns against Celtic in the second leg. As for my points and the game week rank and stuff like that, I have gone down by only a few hundred places. It's the smallest red arrow I can think of in a very long time, especially in UCL Fantasy, but I have to say those late sellings of Gatti and all these players like Bellingham ultimately ended up stinging me quite badly. Even Donnarumma between the sticks, who has been terrible all season, he got 7 points and he's now up to 22 for the campaign. So going for Donnarumma and then Gatti would have really changed my week and it would have resulted in a comfortable green arrow, but I still have a solid platform for Matchday 10, and that's the main focus of this video, with my transfer plans and how we can improve with only 2 available transfers at our disposal. I've also got the wildcard in my back pocket, but one possibility I'm considering is selling Phil Foden for Michael Olise and tripling up on that Bayern Munich attack. It was Olise who scored the opening goal against Celtic in that 2-1 victory, and Foden won a penalty, but over the weekend it was a 4-0 win for Man City, courtesy of a Marmoush hat-trick, and Haaland got an assist. He is a bit of an injury doubt heading into this game, but he posted something on Instagram saying he's going to be ready, and ultimately I had no concerns about him being unavailable whatsoever. Mbappe also had an injury scare, and in regards to both Man City and Real Madrid, with their fantastic matchup, which is bound to have a lot of goals once again, Rudiger and Alaba will be in the squad, which is a massive boost for Real Madrid, but Lucas Vazquez is definitively ruled out. As for Manchester City, Akanji is out for 8 to 10 weeks, and they've still got other injury problems of their own, Rodri being the biggest of them all, of course, and another one is Oscar Bob, who was actually touted to start most games for Man City towards the beginning of the season, whilst Bayern Munich don't have too many injury problems. They've got a few illnesses like Joao Paulinho, which makes them doubtful for Matchday 10, but Elise is poised to start, and he's been brilliant in recent matches, except that game against Bayer Leverkusen on Saturday, a 0-0 draw there, where Bayern Munich were very defensive but got the job done and retained their 8-point lead over Bayer Leverkusen in that Bundesliga table. But if not, I am looking at Bellingham and reversing my mistake and going for another Real Madrid attacker. This would give me 2 Bayern Munich and 2 Real Madrid attackers, so to speak, with Bellingham and Vinicius Jr. and also Harry Kane and Musiala. This might be the best balance for my team overall, but the likes of Foden and Barcola are on the chopping block. If I decide to go to Elise, I might keep Foden in the end and decide to sell Barcola. That's something else I'm weighing up. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. So one of these transfers will likely happen. And in the defensive line, I am looking at adding a Bayern Munich defender. I believe Kim Min-jae will start, despite the benching in Matchday 9 and not even coming on as a substitute to defend that lead. And in Matchday 10, I think the Bavarians have the best chance of keeping a clean sheet, especially on the Tuesday. So I'm opting for a Bayern Munich defensive double-up rather than Atalanta, who could actually see 2 key players return from injury in Lukman and Kolasinac. And if the Bosnian were to start, it would be Kolasinac, Hien, and Jamitsi as the back 3. So I'm not really concerned about Jamitsi starting or not, but I think Club Brugge could score a goal in Italy, and that would make things really difficult for the Italians. So that's why Jamitsi to Kim Min-jae might work for me. But ultimately, a lot of these kind of transfers I'm looking at are going to be marginal calls, and the player I sell might end up outscoring my replacement, which I saw happen on a lot of occasions in the deadline stream for Matchday 9. But let's now look ahead to my Matchday 10 provisional team with some of these transfers in mind, and I don't see myself making a goalkeeper change. So that's why Manuel Neuer will be my goalkeeper on the Tuesday, and I think he's the best option on that particular day. The other one to rival him would be Trubin, and I think Benfica are worth investing defensively with one of Otamendi or maybe going for Trubin instead. You've also got other options there, but it's worth noting the Portuguese side, despite their 1-0 win this weekend against Santa Clara, they're 2 points behind Sporting in the Portuguese league, but they are decimated by injuries right now, and the likes of Di Maria are doubtful for Matchday 10. As for my defensive line, in the starting 11 at least, I've got the likes of Hien, Kim Min-jae and Hernandez, who all play on the Tuesday. And in terms of Matchday 9, I had a balance of 8 players on the Tuesday and 7 on the Wednesday. And that is ultimately the kind of balance you want to go for, maybe even 9 on the Tuesday or 10. But if you have got more Wednesday players, it's not the end of the world. And I think a lot of us will have that sort of structure because of how the fixtures have landed, and ultimately want to pick the best team and your favourite players and not think too much about structures all the time. But it's something worth having taken into account. But Hien, I think, could keep a clean sheet, and if not, he's got the ball recovery potential. As long as he doesn't have a howler and concedes a penalty or gets booked and all of this jazz like he did in Matchday 9, I think he's a decent UCL Fantasy option. But he was a big disappointment for the first leg of the knockout playoff rounds. I think Kim Min-jae could be a great transfer for us, and he was going to be in my team for Matchday 9 until we got that report, which I covered in the deadline stream. And I don't really like Hernandez, to be honest, but I thought AC Milan could keep one clean sheet across both legs against Feyenoord, particularly at the San Siro, and AC Milan on Saturday got another 1-0 victory, but it's not looking pretty, and their manager Sergio Conceição can be pragmatic. He showed it during his time at Porto, and we saw how defensively resolute the Portuguese outfit were last season, but I think Hernandez could do something, despite the fact that his biggest return in a single match day is 5 points, which simply isn't good enough. But I think one decent return is coming, and a clean sheet will be crucial to achieving such a return. As for my midfield, I'm much more confident. I've got Dembele, Musiala, Pulisic and Bellingham, but some of these players, particularly Pulisic and Musiala, don't have the best goals and assist record in the last 10 match days, and when you are looking to fill up your midfield, it can be quite difficult actually, because a lot of the best options have progressed already to the next round, like Florian Wirtz and Rafinha, for example, but I still think these two are amongst the best options in a midfield with the best limitless team or the wildcard, or perhaps using free transfers. I'm very confident in Bellingham and Dembele, there's no doubt about that. And when you're looking at other options in this position, maybe Bakayoko from PSV, Igor Paxal from Feyenoord, there are some options there. Michael Olise, Phil Foden is still decent, and I might regret selling him, but I think this might be the strongest midfield four you can build. But then again, that is definitely up in the air, and some of these players need to step up in the Champions League once again. But Dembele has been doing that. He scored a hat-trick in Matchday 8 and a brace in Matchday 9, and Bellingham is a man of big moments. And the same goes for my front line actually. Guirassy, Harry Kane and Vinicius Jr., all with decent home fixtures, but I have to say, in the case of Guirassy, it might be a bit awkward. He missed 3 big chances on Saturday in a 2-0 loss against Bochum, and Borussia Dortmund have been terrible in the Bundesliga this season, but Guirassy is the only player to have not blanked in any single match in the Champions League this season. His record is phenomenal in this competition, but I'm not so sure about this kind of matchup, and also the game circumstance, because Borussia Dortmund are 3-0 up. They might prioritise a defensive approach, and Guirassy might not get many opportunities. So if you are building a team fresh, I think you could go about Guirassy in Matchday 10 and maybe go for the likes of Pavlidis or a striker who will get more chances. Now, that's all hypothetical. Maybe Dortmund still go for the kill, and if Sporting leave a lot of gaps, Borussia Dortmund on the counter-attack could actually have the likes of Guirassy in great spaces. But I'm not as convinced about Guirassy now after his player of the match performance in Matchday 9 because of how comfortable the Borussia Dortmund lead seems to be at the moment. And I think Sporting will just give everything they have on the table, and maybe Gyökeres will be the best striker from that particular matchup. As for my bench, it's looking fairly decent. I've got the likes of Di Gregorio, who I'm not really convinced about, to be fair, but Hakimi, Barcola and William Pacho offer great options on the Wednesday against Brest, and it was ultimately that quartet which saved me in Matchday 9. Otherwise, the Red Arrow would have been more substantial, and not just by a couple of hundred places. Let's talk about the captaincy though, and it's going to be the same options as I discussed, only in reverse now. Harry Kane will be my Tuesday captain, and I'm still getting questions about how the captaincy works and substitutions. Check out my How to Play UCL Fantasy guide and the chip strategy video, because all of that is covered in detail. But essentially, you want to start your Tuesday players and put some of those options on the Wednesday on your bench, and then once the Tuesday games are completed, you can sub out your lowest scoring players and bring in those that are yet to play to maximize your chances of getting points. If you have played the World Cup or Euro Fantasy, it's pretty much the exact same here with the Champions League as well, and that's why you can captain a Tuesday player first, and if they don't deliver, you can switch it to your Wednesday captain, and of course your original choice will have their double points removed. You can still have them in your starting 11 though. You don't need to sub off Harry Kane, for example, if you switch the armband, which I might have to do on the Wednesday, and Ousmane Dembele is the prime candidate facing Brest. He's got an incredible record against them. His 2025 form is sensational, and you've got other options here. Even an outside punt on Vinicius Jr. or Bellingham could work very well. And as poor as Feyenoord are defensively, they kept a clean sheet in the first leg against AC Milan, so I wouldn't captain an AC Milan player. I think having Pulisic and Hernandez is already more than enough, and Musiala could be an outside shout, but I'm really just looking at Dembele, Kane and Vinicius as my captaincy options. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and let me show you the odds for the clean sheets and goal scorers. Just like last week, these stats are taken from UCL_Fantasy on X. You can ignore Brest and Celtic, they are the bottom two teams, but in top spot we've got PSG, Bayern Munich are second, AC Milan, Atalanta, Borussia Dortmund, Benfica, PSV, Real Madrid, Juventus, Sporting, Monaco, Club Brugge, Feyenoord, Man City, Brest and Celtic. That is the order of the clean sheet odds according to this website, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. Do you disagree as well? You can see the day they're playing on the right hand side, which is also relevant when you're ordering your bench and the captaincy. And now I'm going to show you the goal scorer odds, assuming that these players start. There aren't many surprises in this top 15 list, with Harry Kane at number 1, Dembele, Mbappe, Jimenez and Barcola complete the top 5. And to finish off this list, you've got Vinicius, Pavlidis, Lookman, Haaland, Kvaratskhelia, Retegui, Musiala, Tammy Abraham, Pulisic, and Leroy Sané. The likes of Guirassy, for example, are 17th in this list at the moment. So you might be surprised by a few of the results, you could say, not seeing Guirassy or Gyökeres anywhere near it. But I think with the top 5, that's a fairly sensible list. I think Barcola is the only one you might dispute, and hopefully he can return in Matchday 10. He has been quite disappointing, missing many big chances, especially in the Champions League, but he's a young talent with a lot of potential, and ultimately we've got so many great options in UCL Fantasy. Over the last couple of live streams and videos, people have said they aren't really too happy with the template forming in the Champions League because of the limited teams we've got available in the knockout playoff round. So what you see on screen is a 50-man squad full of differentials, and I'm not saying you should build this exact squad because you are missing some of the best assets like Kane and Vinicius, and ultimately you can play UCL Fantasy the way you want to, but you can pick some of these players if you are looking for differentials in each position. And between the sticks, Trubin and Karnasecki are my favourites after the likes of Donnarumma and also Manuel Neuer. In the defensive line, Gatti is by far the best Juventus defender, and he also kept a clean sheet in a 1-0 victory over Inter Milan on Sunday as Juventus rose to 4th in the Serie A table. Otamendi is a great pick. He got 10 points in Matchday 9 on his birthday. Sappacosta's got the assist for it, and he's also got 8% ownership. You've got Nuno Mendes or Marquinhos, who has 66 balls recovered this season, but Nuno Mendes offers more attacking potential. Having said that, in Matchday 9, he got 8 ball recoveries, which isn't too shabby, and Upamecano was awarded Player of the Match in Matchday 9. Will he start in the following game? It's not completely certain, but I think Upamecano and Kim Min-jae is a very solid centre-back partnership nowadays, and they have improved after some shaky performances last season. Igor Paxao is undoubtedly the best Feyenoord option, and he got that big return in Matchday 9. Kokchu has also been very consistent throughout the entire season. He's always been up there amongst the highest scoring UCL Fantasy midfielders. Lookman could be available, and if he starts, I think he's a great option and arguably in the best midfield 5 you can really build. And I've also gone for Bakayoko, who was benched surprisingly against Juventus in the first leg, but I would back him to start here, and he's got a good home record, especially in the Champions League. And Elise is not a differential. I do hold my hands up about that. His ownership is 17%, but everybody else on this list has less than 10% ownership at the time of this recording, and going for Elise over Musiala can be quantified as a differential of sorts, although his ownership doesn't suggest that. And as for the front line, Pavlidis scored in both games against Monaco this season, and both of those games were victories for Benfica. De Ketelaere has been solid all season, especially at home, and Santiago Jimenez scored the winning goal on Saturday for AC Milan, and he's had a fairly decent start in terms of goal contributions. The only game where he blanked was against Feyenoord, his former club, in the first leg, but I would back him to have a say to culminate that tie. It could go all the way to extra time and penalties, but ultimately AC Milan have that pedigree and history in the Champions League, and I think they'll go through, and Jimenez could be crucial. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Which other differentials would you recommend? And also, in terms of like big hitters, do you think Mbappe is a must-have with 11 goals in the last 10 matches? Maybe Erling Haaland or Marmoush, the hat-trick hero against Newcastle. Ultimately, we are blessed with options, particularly in the forward line, but there are so many different ways of playing UCL Fantasy. that concludes the UCL Fantasy videos for Matchday 10, but don't worry, there is going to be a deadline stream tomorrow where I answer hundreds, maybe even thousands of questions. We lock in our teams, cover the early lineups, and also all the team news we get on the Monday and Tuesday. And we can also do that in the comment section of this video and across all my social media platforms. Thank you very much for watching this video and listen to my podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. I promise to get this to a 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. We're hoping to reach that by tomorrow, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a single upload or live stream. Follow me on X, Instagram and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, UCL Fantasy League and Spotify can also be found in the description. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 10 and the rest of the tournament, and I'll see you tomorrow for that deadline stream.